It is 50,000 BCE. You are sweating through a savanna heatwave, and the only drinkable liquid in a 10-mile radius is a muddy puddle currently being shared by a family of warthogs. What did early humans actually do when drinking natural water was basically a game of microscopic Russian roulette? The answer involves an ancient biological coping mechanism that still explains why you instinctively check the expiration date on milk before smelling it. This is the story of how humanity survived before clean water. To understand the sheer scale of the prehistoric hydration problem, you first have to understand the fundamental design flaw of the human body. As a species, we made an evolutionary bargain. We traded our thick, insulating fur for millions of highly efficient eccrine sweat glands. This allowed us to become the ultimate endurance predators. While other predators overheated and collapsed after a short sprint, early humans could jog after an antelope for 6 hours in the midday sun until the animal simply died of heat stroke. We became apex predators through the terrifying power of mild, persistent jogging. But this superpower came with a massive biological tax. We are essentially leaky biological radiators. A human can sweat out up to 2 liters of water an hour under heavy exertion. We need to drink constantly to maintain blood volume and cellular function, making us uniquely tethered to fresh water sources compared to other mammals. But the Pleistocene epoch did not come equipped with Brita filters. Every river, stream, lake, and watering hole was a communal bathtub and toilet for every other organism in the ecosystem. You could not simply cup your hands and drink deeply from a pristine natural spring because nature's water fountains were less crisp alpine oasis and more mammoth bathwater infused with cholera. Taking a drink meant exposing your digestive tract to a hostile takeover by protozoa, bacteria, parasitic worms, and amoebas. For a modern human, drinking contaminated water results in a terrible weekend and a trip to a pharmacy. For an early human, contracting a gastrointestinal illness in the wild was a catastrophic, life-ending event. Severe dehydration from dysentery is a very fast track to becoming leopard food. So, our ancestors were trapped in a cruel paradox. They had to drink constantly to survive, but every drink they took could easily kill them. Before the invention of the water bottle, your hydration strategy was mostly just staring at a muddy hole and asking yourself how lucky you felt today. Without microscopes or germ theory, early humans had to rely on a brutal trial and error system that largely consisted of watching a tribe member drink from a stagnant pond and immediately expire, and then collectively deciding not to drink from that pond anymore. But over thousands of generations, we became landscape reading water snobs. We learned that still, green stagnant water was basically a microbial nightclub, while fast-moving water bubbling over rocks was generally a safer bet. We learned to watch the environment, following the flight paths of bees and finches to hidden natural springs where the Earth's bedrock acted as a massive geological filter. When surface water was dangerously foul, early humans learned to dig deep holes in dry riverbeds, allowing the surrounding sand to sift out the larger chunks of biological matter before scooping up the murky, slightly less lethal liquid that seeped into the depression. But behavioral tricks and digging in the dirt were not enough to guarantee survival. Our bodies had to fundamentally rewire themselves to handle the constant, daily influx of contaminated water. Enter the human immune system, an overzealous, highly aggressive bouncer that spent millions of years learning to identify and annihilate whatever microscopic horrors slipped past your lips. Your stomach acid evolved to be incredibly potent, maintaining a pH level closer to that of scavengers like vultures than to other primates. This highly acidic environment served as a chemical moat capable of dissolving pathogens and bacteria that would make a chimpanzee violently ill. We became heavily armored on the inside just to handle a casual Tuesday drink, but solving this problem created a completely new, slightly ridiculous psychological glitch, one that you probably experienced this morning. To keep you from swallowing poison in the first place, evolution realized it was much more efficient to stop you before the water even reached your stomach. So, nature gifted you with the complex emotion of disgust. Disgust is not a cultural construct or a learned behavior. It is a primal, biological alarm system designed specifically to keep you away from contaminated food and water. We developed highly specialized olfactory receptors that trigger an instant, involuntary gag reflex at the scent of rot, sulfur, mold, or decay. We evolved taste buds that treat anything bitter or overwhelmingly sour as a mortal threat. When a human encounters something disgusting, the facial expression is universal. The nose crinkles to pinch off the nasal passage, the eyes narrow to protect the retinas, and the mouth pulls back to prepare for vomiting. It is a physical barricade against airborne pathogens. This is exactly why human toddlers instinctively reject vegetables and unfamiliar foods. Their brains are running ancient software that assumes anything bitter or strange is a toxic plant or a batch of parasite-ridden water. You are not a picky eater. You are just a descendant of a very cautious, highly anxious ape who survived the Stone Age strictly because they refused to drink weird-smelling puddle water. We like to think we conquered the food chain through pure intellect, but half of early survival was just sweating efficiently and having an intense psychological breakdown when something smelled weird. Eventually, humanity grew tired of outsourcing our survival entirely to our gag reflex and stomach acid. The ultimate mastery over our hydration problem arrived with a singular technological breakthrough: the domestication of fire. When early humans figured out how to drop superheated river stones into animal skin bags of water, or later, how to boil water in clay pots, they inadvertently performed the greatest public health intervention in human history. Boiling water murdered the microscopic assassins hiding inside it. Suddenly, we didn't just have to drink from pristine springs or dig holes in the sand. We could drink from swamps. We could melt snow. We could hydrate anywhere. And as humans transitioned into agricultural societies and lived in closer, filthier proximity to our own waste, we figured out an even more entertaining way to purify our hydration: fermentation. By accidentally letting grain, honey, or fruit sit in water until it turned into low alcohol beer or wine, we created a beverage where the alcohol content actively sanitized the liquid and the boiling process required to brew it killed the bacteria. For a significant portion of human history, particularly before the advent of modern municipal plumbing, the primary method of avoiding deadly waterborne diseases was simply maintaining a mild, socially acceptable buzz from morning until night. This ancient, exhausting battle against dirty water is still dictating your behavior today, operating quietly in the background of your modern life. It is the reason why humans are universally obsessed with the aesthetic of clear, sparkling things. Our profound psychological attraction to shiny jewelry, glossy surfaces, and glittering objects is rooted in our ancestors' desperate life or death search for the shimmer of clean, flowing water in a dry landscape. When you see a sparkling diamond, your primitive brain is just aggressively celebrating a really good puddle. It also completely explains your visceral reaction to your own refrigerator. When you open the fridge, smell a carton of milk that expired 2 days ago, and physically recoil in horror while making a face of pure revulsion. That is your Pleistocene survival mechanism overriding your conscious thought. Your brain does not know about pasteurization, FDA regulations, or indoor plumbing. It just registers the chemical signature of spoilage and aggressively pulls the fire alarm to prevent you from contracting an ancient intestinal parasite. Your brain assumes you are standing in a prehistoric swamp about to make a terrible mistake, rather than standing in a kitchen holding a slightly old dairy product. So, how did early humans actually survive when there was no clean water? They survived by evolving an ironclad stomach, weaponizing the emotion of disgust, and eventually realizing that setting things on fire makes them slightly less deadly. The modern human body is a walking, breathing testament to millions of years of drinking very questionable liquids and somehow living to tell the tale. So the next time you dramatically dump out a glass of tap water because it tastes slightly funny, or you refuse to drink from a water bottle that has been sitting in your car for a week, don't feel bad. You aren't being a diva. You are just executing a 200,000-year-old software protocol designed to keep you from losing a fight against a microscopic amoeba.